Okay, I honestly thought this week's episode of WandaVision was going to be a wee bit less intense given how heavy last week's was. Nope, turns out this train doesn't have any brakes and we're going full speed from start to finish. Let's dive in. WandaVision episode 6 opens with a fantastic Malcolm in the Middle parody that puts us safely in the early 2000s, and it's a Halloween episode, so everyone's got their costumes on, and by costumes I mean everyone is wearing their comic book accurate costumes, and it looks so good in a kind of cheesy sort of way. It looks great, but like it's also the same reason that a lot of superheroes get like redone and reimagined for the big screen, because that's how they really look, and it's like cool, but it's also kind of corny looking, but great. It's still really cool to see these things actually be lifted straight from the page of the comics into a TV show. This episode heavily features Pietro, who surprised everyone by showing up last week, apparently even Wanda. I honestly didn't expect to see Quicksilver use his powers so soon in the show. I really thought there would be a lot of teasing in the lead up to it, but nope, it's the first thing we see him do. And in this first scene, the outfit that Pietro's wearing looked to me quite similar to the outfit that Pietro was wearing at the end of Age of Ultron. Obviously that was Aaron Taylor Johnson's version of the character, but I thought the outfits were kind of similar. Quicksilver's an interesting one here, because while he has kept his charming yet slightly douchey personality from the X-Men films, he seems to know a lot about what's going on here, like outright saying to Wanda he knows what's going on, he knows what she's doing, and he keeps trying to ask questions to learn more. During the trick-or-treat scene when Wanda's talking to her, we see Quicksilver and Tommy out causing a wee bit of chaos in the neighbourhood, and this is initially when I started to think that Quicksilver might not be all he's claiming to be. He's acting in a similar kind of disruptive way that Agnes is, almost like just providing a distraction to try and throw Wanda off or something, but it also could just be in line with his personality causing a wee bit of mischief. But the other thing that's kind of swaying me is that he seems to know something about what happened between him actually dying in Age of Ultron and coming back and appearing in Westview. I don't know exactly what has happened to get him from wherever he's come from to here, but it looks to me like we might be getting some sort of mashing or melding together of the two Quicksilvers, like he's almost got his memories from the X-Men timeline and his memories from the MCU timeline, and they're kind of being mushed together, and that's causing his confusion, or this is someone else using Pietro's body to get close to Wanda to find out more about what's going on. I don't think it's going to be the latter, because I think this is too big of a deal having Evan Peters specifically play the role. I don't think Marvel or Disney would make such a big deal about that and just use it as an excuse to pull the rug out from under us. I think it's more likely going to be a multiverse thing where he's been plucked from there and there's been some sort of kind of confusion that's taking place in his own head, which is why he seems to have some of the details but not all of them. Because he tells Wanda that he's just running about in the street and gets shot like a chump, and the next thing he knows, he hears her voice. Neither of those things happened. He died when Ultron shot him as he was trying to save Hawkeye, and Wanda never called out his name. She screamed when he died because she'd realised that he was dead, but she never actually called out his name, and we see in the show that Wanda really didn't seem to have much of a clue as to why he'd shown up, so that story's kind of peculiar. I don't know if it's part of this kind of multiverse confusion or whatever, or if this is just someone making a really bad attempt to lie into Wanda about who they actually are. Vision, now fully aware that not everything is as it seems, decides to skip out on trick-or-treating with the family to go his own little investigation instead. Now Wanda's not a fan of this, even prompting a "you're not supposed to" from her. This scene starts jovial but quickly gets pretty uncomfortable as you learn that the tensions from the end of last week's episode between Wanda and Vision were never fully resolved. The further out you get on this hex, it seems that Wanda's powers taper off, but I'm starting to think that it's actually because Wanda had to animate all the children just now, so the people further away from her are almost like a slow loading YouTube video and are just kind of buffering until she has the processing power to give them something else to do. Quicksilver actually acknowledged this in a later scene in the episode where he said that she put them to sleep while she was animating the parents to avoid traumatizing them. How thoughtful. Vision encounters Agnes sitting in her car, stopped at a junction at Ellis Avenue, the exact place Wanda told the twins not to go near. Now this scene really threw me because I for a split second really believed that Agnes was innocent and just another victim in all of this. But she's dressed as a witch, right? How much more on the nose can you get for this character? She gets woken up by Vision in the same way that he did with Abelash last week, and she spills the beans. "You're an Avenger, you're a Vision, you're dead, dead!" This obviously spooks Vision a fair bit, and that was when I started to think that maybe she's just playing into his hand. She wants him to realise that he's dead. He obviously has no memory of any of this. He doesn't even know what an Avenger is. They've been building Agnes this whole show as a disruptive character who's there to just cause some chaos and try and upset Wanda or upset Vision in some way. Straight after this, Vision tries to make a break for the exit, so I am pretty sure Agnes was just playing along with Vision this whole time, and none of what we saw, she wasn't actually a victim, she's just waiting for him. Outside of the Hex, tensions are also rising within S.W.O.R.D. between Monica, Jimmy Woo, Darcy and Director Hayward, with Hayward wanting to launch a full-scale attack on Wanda. When they all object to Director Hayward's attack, he throws them off site, which is the behaviour of someone who is completely innocent and has nothing to hide. Jimmy Woo, Monica and Darcy all go rogue and start to continue the investigation on their own. They learn that Hayward is using the vibranium within Vision to track him inside Westview. Monica mentions that her friend who she texted in last week's episode is on their way with the device to help Monica get back into the Hex. Now interestingly, they're never seen again in this episode, so that's 2 episodes where they've been mentioned but not seen. There's theories that it could also be Talos' daughter from Captain Marvel if it's not going to be Mr. Fantastic, but if it is Mr. Fantastic, which I don't think that it is, if it is, I've thought of something that would be kind of fun about it. So he'd be helping Monica break back into the Hex, breaking down the barrier to get into the Hex, right? He'd also, on a meta level, be breaking down the barrier between the Fox Cinematic Universe and the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and that's kind of fun. The end of this episode is a lot to take in. You've got Vision trying to escape from the Hex by walking through the barrier. Now, when Monica was ejected from the Hex, she was like popped out, and she appeared out the other side. Vision almost seemed like he was getting like pulled back in by something. Could be Wanda, but I also don't know if she would seemed aware of it at all, because she was back preoccupied in Westview with Pietro and the twins, but she's also animating this entire town and still going about her business, so it's entirely possible that she just in her mind is like, nope, you're staying in here, buddy. Or it could be somebody else. They've been building this mystery person up the whole show. Maybe it's somebody like this, could be Agnes that keeps being used as the scapegoat for this person. Maybe it's her. She was just down the street. Maybe she's saying, nope, you're needed in here for something far more sinister. We don't know. You start to see Vision literally being pulled apart, like piece by piece, and pulled back into Westview, and eventually the pain from this becomes too much. Darcy tries to run to save him, but she gets handcuffed to one of the S.W.O.R.D. trucks for helping. Vision eventually crumples from the pain, and presumably because there's not enough of him left to be standing up, and he ends up landing in a very similar position to that of which Pietro died in Age of Ultron. Back in Westview, Wanda and Pietro are talking, Wanda again saying she doesn't know how all of this started, and then we're treated to the sight of undead Pietro, because apparently one undead hero isn't traumatizing enough. Now I'm starting to think that these are actually just hallucinations to remind the audience of the amount of pain and trauma that Wanda has been through and that she carries with her every single day. Billy hears Vision screaming using his powers, and this is the first time we see Billy using his powers in the show. We've seen Tommy running around with Quicksilver all episode, speeding around I should probably say. Anyway, Billy hears Vision screaming and runs to tell Mum, and when she finds out, oh boy. Quicksilver makes a pretty dickish comment about how Vision can't die twice, so Wanda blasts him into a haystack. Kinda deserved it, but then not only does she stop everything, like everyone in Westview stop dead, she powers up and expands the perimeter of the Hex. Now pulls in Vision as she expands it, then the S.W.O.R.D. base that takes Darcy with it. We don't see what happens to Darcy, but we now know that next week she'll be in there. Unfortunately, doesn't quite catch Hayward. They get away just by that much. So I think we'll be seeing him back in a future episode in less of a good mood than he left this one in. The S.W.O.R.D. compound gets turned into a circus, and all S.W.O.R.D. agents get turned into clowns, presumably because that's how Wanda sees them. We get one last shot of Wanda's eyes returning back to normal from glowing red, and that's it! That's where they end it. That's where these cliffhanger endings. Oh man, I don't know how much more of this show I can handle. I'm still loving that they're doing it week by week though. It's just, I get excited for Fridays and I can't wait for what fresh hell this show has in store for us every week, but oh man, my heart can't handle this for much longer. What do you think is going on? I can't believe we're still asking that same question 6 episodes in. Do you think Wanda is really doing all of this? Do you think someone else is pulling some strings here? Do you think Pietro's to be trusted? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon.